كتاب مسطور في رق منشور والبيت المعمور والسقف المرفوع والبحر المسجور إن عذاب ربك لواقع ما له من دافع يوم تمور السماء مورا وتسير الجبال سيرا فويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين هم في خوض يلعبون يوم يدعون إلى نار جهنم دعا هذه النار التي كنتم بها تكذبون أفسحر هذا أم أنتم لا تبصرون اصلوها فاصبروا أو لا تصبروا سواء عليكم إنما تجزون ما كنتم تعملون.
اللهم جبرائيل وميكائيل وإسرافيل فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدنا لمن تختلف من الحق بإذني إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط المستقيم. The title that I'm going to discuss is called The Blessings of Being Given Life. There are 3 subheadings that I'm going to speak about in terms of being given life, the world of the souls, life versus ignorance. Now, being given life, the greatest blessing that people tend to forget is being given life. Being able to breathe, see, hear, smell and taste are such unique blessings and more valuable than not being given life. People tend not to pay attention to this, just as people don't remember death when it stares at them. As so, the scary thought is just imagine I or we never existed, and Allah chose other creatures over us. So be grateful that we exist and make sure we obey Allah's rules and therefore being amongst the successful ones. Allah says in the Quran in chapter 5 verse 54, quote, Allah will bring forth in place of them a people He will love and who will love Him, who are humble towards the believers, powerful against the disbelievers. They strive in the cause of Allah and do not fear the blame of a critic, unquote. Understanding why we were created should be constantly thought, and that being able to exist is something that should come before the question, why were we created? Because being able to exist is truly a gift. So you went through the transition from the world of the souls known as the first source of your existence, and then being dead, and then being given life again in the hereafter, and then the believer lives forever, never dies, and that is Jannah. You must understand something. Your existence has a timeline. The soul being created by Allah, then the soul enters the womb of your mother on 120 days, creating a heartbeat. Then the soul is removed, causing him or her to die. Then the soul is put back in him or her, waiting to be judged. To be granted the existence, so in terms of being granted life, and the transition that occurs through the stages from alam al-arwah to the life in the world is that you've been given a unique and important role to establish the belief principles that Allah has legislated, and to remember it is Allah who created you. The purpose behind our existence has much profound and great wisdom, which Allah has chosen for us to exist. Being given existence is not merely something brushed aside, but to pay attention to its great importance. Being given life is hard to compare to anything else, and that existence is something that we should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole fundamental of our existence is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create jinn and mankind except to worship me. Worship is a fundamental importance and reason for our existence. The only reason why we were created is to worship the higher authority, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being given life is something we do not neglect, forget, or be ignorant towards the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not be amongst those ideologists, atheists, who believe when we die we're simply gone. Being able to think and understand from what is correct and what is wrong, and with our own judgment have been placed within us. And this judgment that the person can make will eventually lead a person to paradise or hellfire. The fundamental importance is to understand that having the consciousness of being able to exist is truly something significant, and that your existence makes sense when you deeply remember Allah and you perform the duties outlined. Furthermore, the existence or life that Allah has given us should always be remembered and the thought process should constantly remind yourself or remind itself that just imagine I never existed. Is something scary, and this question should lead a person to faith and understanding. Because faith, i.e. Islam, mends and shapes a person's life in all angles, whether related to spiritually, growth of the heart, purpose and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second subheading is the world of the souls. Allah created all souls of descendants of Adam and Hawa who were predestined to come to this earth. Everything about the universe and our soul before or after the creation documented and recorded in a tablet book. So what came before and what is after in terms of the before the sign of the day of judgment or the sign of the hour, it's all documented and recorded in a tablet book in a book called Lawhul Mahfuz. What is Lawhul Mahfuz? The place where the decree of Allah are kept. Ibn Kathir, may Allah be pleased with him and have mercy upon him, said, in the Lawhul Mahfuz, the preserved tablet means it's among the higher group, i.e. the angels. The preserved and protected from anything being added or taken away or any alternation or changes. Now the soul that Allah has created and that Allah will create until the hour is established is recorded in the tablet. The recorded tablet deals with all affairs that Allah decrees. Out of the stages of human creation from the time we first came to existence in terms of the alam al-arwah, of the resurrection, I want to focus upon the first stage of life or existence. There is a hadith that supports the conversation we had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala known as the covenant. Abu Dawood narrated in Sunan and is Sahih by Albani. Al-Hasan ibn Ali told Al-Hajar ibn Mashhur said, I heard Hamad ibn Salaman explain the hadith. Quote, every child is born in a state of fitrah, he said, in a view that refers to when Allah took the covenant from them when they were in the fathers or lines, when he said, I am not your Lord. Am I not your Lord? They said, Bala, or yes. This is in Surah Arafah 7, chapter 7, verse 172. What is the difference between the soul and the spirit? Now, the soul itself, the soul is called nafs, And to understand enough, there is a limited information that Allah gives us. Allah mentions, وَيَسْأَلُونَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيهِمْ مِنْ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And they ask you, O Muhammad, about the soul. Say, the soul is of the affair of my Lord, and the mankind have not been given knowledge except a little. Now, the term nafs for the human soul is that the soul which can do good or evil, commits sins and is judged in the hereafter and leaves the body upon death. The ruh in the Quran is described as a singular entity from which God has breathed into man. The third subheading in terms of the blessings of being given life, the third is the life versus ignorance. In terms of its subheading, what does life mean over ignorance? And that ignorance that I'm referring to is the claims of atheists and agnostics. Their belief and concepts regarding the hereafter is that there's no life after death. It's clearly their statement in terms of there's no life after death, and this is what atheists believe. If there was no life after if there was no life after death, then how do you explain the risks that a person is posing from which their actions have consequences, especially those who commit the most evil? Truly they will be held to account. Now, what are the diseases of ignorance? What causes ignorance? What are the diseases of ignorance? Blindness in the heart, neglecting the truth, embarrassment in one's state of mind, confusion, a lost soul, sins, minor doubts and severe doubts, holding the hand of shaitan, lack of knowledge. Ignorance has occurred throughout history. You had Iblis who never prostrated to Adam by the command of Allah. You had ignorance not upon religion when Qabil threatened to kill Habil. However, this was an ignorance upon not distinguishing between good from bad. All the prophets and messengers who told their people about Allah and to worship Him, the people who never obeyed showed ignorance. So understand that the blessings of being given life is something should be understood, and remind yourself who gave you life, the bestower of mercy, Ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum.
وكتاب مسطور في رق منشور والبيت المعمور والسقف المرفوع والبحر المسجور إن عذاب ربك لواقع ما له من دافع يوم تمور السماء مورا وتسير الجبال سيرا فويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين هم في خوض يلعبون يوم يدعون إلى نار جهنم دعا هذه النار التي كنتم بها تكذبون أفسحر هذا أم أنتم لا تبصرون يصلوها فاصبروا أو لا تصبروا سواء عليكم إنما تجزون ما كنتم تعملون